May I answer?
Yes, please.
Hello, everybody. As for me, teaching grammar is interesting as I teach 11 and 10th class students. And I usually teach grammar by brainstorming, giving them some sentences with some errors or some tests, and give time to brainstorming, thinking, and then come again for presentation. Just involving
So,
them, then presentation, then do task.
presentation is later, yes? Okay, I
Yeah.
got it. Thank you. And the last question, how do you how much do you interact with your students in teaching grammar? Do you interact a lot, or in teaching grammar you teach the structure first yourself? Please.
Well, it depends on a student's level, and we know that there are different types of pupils with within the levels also. Some students may do their individually, but some of them need help, and for those who need help, I will try to not get bored them and help and give some
I see.
clues.
Okay, thank you very much. And here we can see some of the answers of other participants in the chat. So let's read them. So Malika Kasimova writes, teaching grammar is interesting as long as we can integrate it with other skills. Yes, Malika, you are right. Thank you. And so songs and chants are a great way for teaching grammar, especially for young learners. Yeah, thank you, Malika, for your response. So now we will move to the main part of our presentation. Thank you, our participants, for being involved into our discussion. Now we will speak about what grammar is itself. So according to many researchers, scholars who made research found that the teaching of grammar is always perceived as the most difficult skill to teach. So as you see, like it's considered as the most difficult and the most boring skill to learn. Yeah, I do remember my own learning grammar. It wasn't fun for me. It was just a learning. I do agree with these results. And why we have to teach grammar. Grammar skill helps learners to organize words and messages meaningfully. Besides, it leads them to become an effective user of target language. So this is one of the scholars' ideas, like according to March 2013. And Thornberry also said that grammar is a description of the rules for forming sentences, including an account of the meaning that these forms convey. So as we see, teaching grammar is very essential, and it's the teacher's job responsibility to make it very interesting. And on the screen also you can see one handout where it's written, let's see it, grandma. So the grandma is getting angry because if you use incorrect punctuation, incorrect way of pronouncing the words, the meaning will be changed. So correct usage of grammar can save lives. It's just a joke. So and now I will introduce some of the approaches which can be used, which are implemented actually by the teachers. So there are two main approaches, deductive and inductive approaches. So deductive approach is teaching grammar explicitly. It means the teacher explains the rules and the structure, just spoon feeds everything, and students just learn them and implement their knowledge into the exercises. The teacher also provides exercises which are separate from the context. Actually, this way of teaching was very popular in the past. Many of the teachers learned in this way. Maybe it's still popular by some of the teachers. And there is another one also as well, creative one, which is called inductive, where you teach the grammar implicitly. So here the students are supposed to notice the grammar rule themselves. The teacher doesn't give the structure, but she may bring some kind of songs or the text where students just read, analyze, understand, try to guess the rule themselves, create their own rule, and the teacher just facilitates them, explains if they make some mistakes. Actually, both of the approaches are very useful. Both of them have its own advantages and disadvantages. Deductive can be used. Deductive is very good way of teaching when your students have very little period of time. For example, if they're getting ready for state examination and they cannot spend a lot of time for guessing and the noticing rules, you can just implement deductive way of teaching. And another one is inductive, is very good because students will just notice the rule and they will learn the rule from their own mistakes or from the mistakes of their peers. So well, and now in the next slide, you can see the description of the noticing hypothesis. According to Schmidt, 1990, learners need to notice grammatical form of language in order to intake them. So according to many researchers, so it was proven that when students notice the grammatical rule, they will just understand it for a longer period of time and understand it better. And I will share 3 more approaches which are based on noticing hypothesis. These 3 approaches are according to the Bedstones 2006. The first approach is called teaching grammar as a product. Second one is called teaching grammar as a process. And the last one is called teaching grammar as a skill. So if you implement this approach into your own teaching, you will have very interesting and productive grammar lessons. So while in the next slide, I will try to explain teaching grammar as a process. This approach, so this approach helps learners to notice and to structure by focusing on specified forms and meaning, which means students are supposed to notice the form themselves and make the meaningful sentences. For example, in the first sentence on the right exercise, you can see the sentences are given. For example, do you have a car? Yes, I do. No, I don't. Have you got a car? Yes, I have. No, I haven't. So students will just read it. They will just learn the structure of it. So they will have to guess it. Teacher doesn't give the structure himself or herself, but students just by practicing learn it. They will guess. And in the second exercise, students are supposed to use the given words and into the structure. For example, they're supposed to create the sentence like, do you have a computer? Yes, I do. No, I don't. So this is very good way of teaching the grammar because students will just notice the rule and understand themselves. So the second one is called teaching grammar as a process. So in the second slide, you can see that it says that teaching grammar as a process gives learners practice in the skill of language use, allowing them to proceduralize their knowledge. What does it mean? So students will be given the tasks first. They will learn the structure by noticing in the previous exercise. And in the next exercise, when grammar is taught as a process, they will just process their knowledge. As an example, you can look at the exercise. So students are given the pictures and they're given the first part of the sentence, and their task is to continue and make the meaningful sentence. For example, by looking at the picture, students are supposed to say, when I get home, I will just clean up my clothes. So here, students are kind of matching the ideas with the pictures. This is called process. So in the last approach, you can see teaching grammar as a skill. Actually, teaching grammar as a skill, kind of combination of the previous 2 approaches, process and product, which carefully guides learners to utilize grammar for their own communication. Teaching grammar as a skill is mostly used for higher level students. In example, also you can see reading text, which is called Himalayan Adventure. And there are some words which are given in bold in blue color. So those words are state and activity verbs. So the purpose of this exercise is to teach students 2 types of verbs, state and activity verbs. So in the previous exercises, like in the exercise 4 and 5, students will learn the meaning of those words. They will just try to understand them. Then after familiarizing themselves with those words, the teacher will give the home task as to make a research about other types of adventures and write a report about it by applying state and activity verbs. What does it mean? So students learn the new grammar rule during the lesson, but they will practice it at home out of the lesson. So it means students should be able to use those that new concept in a communication. That's why you can just ask your students to write something, or to make a report, like to make a presentation by using that grammar structure. By assigning such a task, you will make sure that your students will learn to use something new in a real life, in an authentic life. So these are 3 approaches by Batstone, which I wanted to share. And in the next slide, Gulbahar is going to explain you one more brilliant approach which can be applied into your lesson in order to make it very productive. Gulbahar. Gulbahar, can you hear me? So it seems Gulbahar has some technical problems. That's why I will continue myself. So the next approach is called 5-step approach by Rod Elli. What kind of approach it is? Let's look. This approach is used not for teaching the new concept, but to revising the concept which is very difficult for students to understand. That's why if you think that your students are having some difficulties in understanding some concepts, just implement this approach, and for sure your students will just understand and comprehend everything easily. So how it will be done? So in the first step, which is called comprehending, in this first step, students will listen to the dialect in order to comprehend. You may provide any kind of song or dialect or in any text. It's up to you and level of your students and their interest. And in the second step, which is called noticing, students listen to the same dialect and fill in the gaps. So in the noticing part, you will provide the same listening, but you will just skip some of the words. Some of the words, the ones which are difficult for your learners. For example, if your learners are facing some difficulties with passive voice, you will just skip the words which belong to passive voice and ask students to listen and fill in the gaps. In the third stage, students try to discover the rules themselves. So here again, students have to notice. Teacher doesn't explain anything. Students will read everything, just compare the sentence and discover the rules and write down the rules themselves. And the teacher may just facilitate them. And in the fourth stage, students try to find and correct errors from the text. So in the next one, you will just provide the handout with several sentences. The task of your students is to find the mistakes and correct them. If there is no mistake, they're supposed to explain why this sentence is considered correct. And in the last stage, students will practice. Here, students try to produce their knowledge, for example, by creating some kind of poster or speaking about it, or just writing any kind of essay or paragraph. It's up to you. So in the next slide, I will just provide one example, a lesson, which is based on Rod Ellis's 5-step approach. This is for teaching passive voice in 5-step approach. So in the first stage, students will listen to comprehend YouTube video. So here we provided a ready video also as well. So you may just use it for your own students. So they will just watch it. And in the next stage, they will listen to notice. So in the next stage, you will provide the transcript of the video, and by missing some of the verbs which belong to passive voice, your students are supposed to listen to one more time and fill in the gaps. And in the third stage, students are supposed to discover the rule. So they will read the transcript and try to understand the rule. So why passive voice is used in this way, and they will just make their own structure and try to explain it to the group. And in the fourth stage, students will be given different sentence, for example, and they find the mistakes in the sentence and correct them. Actually, you may make it even much more interesting, not just only providing the handout, but you may just you may just motivate them to play the dictation running dictation games or the balloons. For example, you may hide a different kind of sentence in the balloons. You may and ask students to burst them. When they burst, they will find the sentence inside of it and answer to the question and decide if the sentences are true or false. And in the last stage, it's a practicing writing the recipe of the potion of intelligence using passive voice. So as you see, like the video and the activities are kind of connected to Harry Potter movie. Actually, students are, this activity is designed for pre-intermediate learner students, for teenagers. That's why students will find it very interesting. And in the fifth stage activity is very interesting for students because they will have to write down their own portion of intelligence by using the passive voice. Here, they will just implement their knowledge into practice. And by applying these activities, 5-step approach, you will make sure that your students will have a chance to revise the difficult topic and reach higher level in grammar. So that was all for about approach. And now Tanya will share some very brilliant and interesting activities which you can use in your offline lessons.
Okay, thank you very much, Rapo, for your informative introduction. But now I'm gonna share with you some grammar activities that you can easily implement in your face-to-face offline classrooms. Okay, and the first one is called detective grammar. So ask your students whether they would like to become a detective, or whether they want to be in the shoes of Sherlock Holmes or Watson. So believe me, they will get very excited. So this very grammar activity can be easily implemented by giving some mysterious stories to your students with, of course, implementation of grammar. So here you can implement question types, the usage of modal verbs, especially the modals of deductive. You can use also the passive voice or use the conditionals, whatever that you have learned with your students during the previous sessions. So the aim, the objective of this very activity is to find, for students would be to find the criminal and to have some fun, but for teachers it would be just to make the students drill the grammar, to practice the grammar that they have been taught before or what they have learned. So in the very bold box, you can see that very short text that I have taken from the links, which are provided below, where you can see lots of useful riddles or useful mysterious stories that you can easily use with your students. So according to this very short text, you can ask your students to write the question sentences or to tell the question sentences if you have passed your question types. You can also make them to provide some models of deductions usage based on the picture that they got or based on the text that the image of the text that they got. And you can also ask them to rewrite the text in the passive form, to rewrite everything. But the main thing here is that you will have lots of fun with your students, first of all. Secondly, that would be very engaging to an activity to implement in your classroom. That would be something really new for your students. And of course, you would be forcing them, not forcing, but making them to hiddenly or implicitly include all the grammar knowledge that they have learned throughout all of the sessions before, and to provide some more sentences. Why this very activity might be very useful for your students is just because you can introduce that grammar. So you can introduce the grammar throughout providing that text itself. By noticing, by learning through the context, they might become more aware of the grammar usage. Secondly, you can use them as a practice of the structures and make your students to produce something as a revision part of their own pieces of grammar that they have learned. So now let's move to the next grammar activity, which can be easily implemented by any kind of teacher. So this is called climbing grammar mountain. For sounding, it might seem something really simple, but it's very engaging. Believe me, your students will love it a lot. So what you need to do here is to prepare sentences, ready-made sentences with correct and incorrect version of it. So with the correct and improper usage of grammar in the sentences. So what you have to do with them is to write them on the special cards, put them in some box or a bag or whatever, then split your group into several teams and then give them cards one by one. So what their aim is to find the right answer. So they have to correct the incorrect version of the sentences, or they have to prove the sentences why they're right, what grammar rule has been implemented here. And according to the template that you can see here, they would have the special template. So they have to insert the sentences one by one and climb that grabber mountain. However, if they answer incorrectly or if they explain something, they have to lose their points. Therefore, they have to climb down their mountain. The aim of this game is just to come to the top first among all of these teams. Why this very activity might be very useful? Just because you can improve students' understanding and comprehension of the overall grammar. So you can just make them strengthen the knowledge that you have input into your students. Of course, you can pay your students attention on grammar and the usage of sentence construction. And this is a very great tool to make your students collaborate and interact, to discuss the points that they were given, whether the sentence is correct or incorrect. So this is a great tool to make your students collaborate, of course, in terms of your grammar. And now let's move to another activity, which is called football grammar. Have you ever tried to make your students play football during the lessons? Okay, this would be very new thing for them, and they might get very interested in it just because they cannot even imagine how to implement football in this very grammar lesson, right? So what you need to do here is to split your classroom into pairs. It depends on the number of students that you've got, and you can split up the the whole group into two teams. So this very activity is usually used for revision grammar constructions and not for grammar. So you can use here reported speech or conditionals or prepositions or whatever. So this game's aim is just to provide the correct answer and to score the goal to the opposite team or just to your opponent. So students will be very engaged in that. So for that, you have to make some preparations beforehand. So you have to make the special cards or just prepare a set of questions with confusing sentences, with correct or incorrect version of the sentences, with grammar mistakes, or just provide some questions about the rules of grammar, or just to ask them to produce something in terms of grammar that you've learned. So for one correct sentence or answer, the student might step forward. But for the incorrect one, the student has to step back, which gives the huge opportunity for the opponents to score a goal. That was the main aim, just to prevent and to defend your, let's say, gates, yeah, from that opponent's goal. So the team who goes the assigned score wins. In this terms of assigned goal, you can use the set of 3 goals, the set of 4 goals, or 5, or whatever. And of course, it depends on your classroom as well. So the materials used for this are not that much comprehensive. So you can choose simply the magnets and put them and stick them to the board, or you can use the projector and insert the picture on the board, just show it to everybody. Or if there are no options for that, you can just simply use A4 format paper and draw the football pitch that your students might use in their classroom. This very grammar activity is very, very engaging and it's very fun, but don't think that it might be too noisy, because two teams are quite responsible for their work, just scoring the goal. So this is very useful when you make your students to drill the constructions that you have previously taught to them. It is very perfect for revision part, especially for reported speech when you ask them to make it up on the spot. So, and this is very useful in order to self-check so that you can see where the student is, what grammar constructions he or she can implement in his or her speech, or what gaps they are lacking for. So you can also have a look and analyze all of this results of the activities and implement some more modifications into your classrooms, maybe in the differentiated instructions as well. So for now, that was all about my face-to-face classroom activities. I'd like to say that please have lots of fun, but please make sure that throughout that fun, throughout that motivating and engaging assignments, and activities, you have to implicitly check the knowledge of your students. You have to hiddenly teach them something new and make them not notice that you are teaching them, and both of you will enjoy the process for sure. For now, Nilüfer will continue with the special tech tools that might be easily implemented in your online classrooms as well. So Nilüfer will continue. Nilüfer, are you here?
Hello, everyone.
Okay, could you please speak up a bit?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, for now it's okay.
Hello, everyone. I will speak about some tools which can be used while teaching and practicing grammar. Actually, the teaching grammar process can be more engaging with these tech tools. Let's get acquainted with our first tool, which is called quill.org. In this app, you can choose either version, like student or teacher. As we are teachers here, you will choose the first, the teacher version. The strengths of quill.org is that, first of all, it is free, and you can learners can develop grammar within the context, improve their proofreading and writing skills. It is easy to check the results, as it does instead of the teacher. And also by the end of the test, it will show the areas that students need to improve. In the next first, when you enter as a teacher, you need to create a class. You push the button classes and create a class. When you start creating, it will show you need to write the name of your class, for example, Spring 1, and choose the level of your learners. Here I decided to choose university level, and there will be some words which can be used as a code before entering the lesson. There are also two options. How do you want to add your students? Students can create their own accounts, or you can create accounts for the students by writing their names and their surnames. In the next slide, you can see how to create a unit. In the home page, you need to push the button activity planner and create a unit. Here I decided to teach grammar articles within a context. And also learners first need to check the errors by themselves and correct them. When they finish with checking, it will show at the end if they are correct or incorrect. After this, they will move to the next slide, where they will practice the target grammar structure. Here you may see in the first sentence, there is a blank, and the learners need to rewrite the sentence by putting an article. When it is done, it will show if it's correct or not. By the end of this activity, the teacher can see the results of their learners. So it will show their names and the results. Here you may see that gray one means that student haven't started the task, and the red one shows that not yet proficient, nearly proficient. It is yellow color, and green color shows that they are proficient enough. Let's introduce the next tool. It is called Learn English Grammar by British Council. You can easily download it into your phone. It is really helpful in terms of practicing and testing your grammar. For example, in the practice part, learners can choose any level they want, starting from beginner level till advanced level. And then when they choose their level, they will see the names of the topics. Yeah, for example, gerund, expressing purpose, verb to infinitive, conditionals. In the first, for example, in the conditionals, there are 20 questions where they need to choose a correct sentence. After, when they finish with it, it will show all the correct or incorrect results. Also, they can practice phrasal verbs and many other grammar structures. In the next slide, in the third app, it is called lingualeo.com. It can be really engaging for younger level learners because it is really like engaging and user friendly first. At the end, when you enter with your Google account, you need to choose the language which you want to master. For example, here we will choose English language, and then you need to write your own name and the date of birth and so on. When you finish with this part, you will go to the next step, and where you need to choose the areas which you are interested in. For example, if you like music, literature, hobby, and you need to tick on the areas which you would like to see more. And after this, you need to choose your level. After this, you will be provided with some tests. By the end of the test, it will show your own results. When you finish it, there are 15 questions, and when you finish with it, it will show your approximate level. For example, pre-intermediate, A2 and B1. Well, then in the next application, this can be helpful for both like teachers and students. Grammarly.com. It is mostly helpful for when you are writing. In order to strengthen your writing skills, you can install this app either on your laptop or your mobile phone. When you are typing and writing something, it will promptly correct the mistakes and show where you made a mistake. For example, this is in the first slide. You may see here your home page. You can create a new document or use the old one. When you go to the new document, you need to set some goals. For example, what is your audience? If it's the general, knowledgeable, and experts, or level of formality, if it's your writing is informal, neutral, or formal. So the tone of your writing, if it's confident, joyful, and optimistic, and while you are writing, it will show the level, how much it's formal, and so on. And then when you start writing your sentences, here it will show the problems with red color. And explain what is the problem here and how, and when you push on it, you can easily correct it. When you have corrected all the mistakes, it will show the word choice, but it is the premium which it should be paid. Here in the next slide, you may see. Yes, here it is highlighted with yellow color, and word choice, passive voice, if you have some problems, but it should be paid, unfortunately. So try to use this app, and I guess it is very helpful and useful in terms of improving your writing skills. And in the next final, last but not least, this is no red ink, it is called. It is also really helpful can be very helpful for learners to improve their writing skills. As a teacher, you may create a class. First, you need to sign up. You can sign up with your Google account, and then write your name and choose if you are a teacher or a student. Here, when you choose a teacher mode, then you will need to write your class and level of your students. When you finish with this part, you need to choose the areas which you are interested in. In the next slide. For example, there are 6 options: build students' confidence with writing, reinforce their writing process, differentiate instruction for students. So there are 6, and you can choose all of them. And when you finish with it, you need to create, after creating a class, you need to assign a task. You can easily create your own task, or you can set the task which is provided by the site itself. Here below, you may see after finishing the tasks, learners' results will be shown. In the first one, if it is white, it means that learner missed the task. If it shows red, that it means that the result was really low, and if it's yellow, it is fair. If it's green, it means that good, and the blue color means that it is like excellent. So this is the all 5 tools which you may find really helpful. Hope you will use them and explore more. Thank you, and Tanya will continue.
Thank you very much, Silver, for your informative part. So implementing those tools might be very, very useful, just because we're having online format, right? And might be very difficult sometimes to assess our students, everybody just having 20 or 30 students in the classroom. Okay, for now, let's have a look at this very question, which is very, very interesting. How to make grammar lessons engaging? Could you please, participants, just switch off your microphones and switch on your microphones and say, what have you learned from today?
May I?
Yes, for sure. Varno, right?
Yes,
Welcome.
right. Hello, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank for today's all presenters, because it was really helpful and interesting webinar. As a teacher, I think all of us appreciate learning something from others. It can be a small game or doesn't matter, any information. And today's one, I think, was really brilliant, because we have learned both offline and online class tools. So we can use them anytime, and it will be really fun.
Okay, thank you very much. So, yes, we can say that it is high time to reconsider our teaching grammar part, right? So, previously, as being students ourselves, we honestly can say that we didn't like the format of grammar teaching as well. So, can you please tell me if you have ever used one of those tools or activities, or have you implemented something else? Maybe you have got more experience to share with other students as well. So, I mean the teachers. Could you please share your experience, what worked in your classroom or not? Any volunteers?
Hello. May I?
Hello, Ranohan, right?
Yes, Miss.
Welcome.
Okay.
Yes, you may speak.
One of the way for teaching grammar, I use, for example, if we have learned or we are going to learn about tech questions, I will give first test, for example, and know let pupils know themselves how much do they know about tech questions. Then after
Okay.
it, I will teach. We will learn together and analyze it and do another test. And after it, we will see how they progress and understand. And for the homework assessment, for homework part, I will give them task to create tests for opposite teams. Divide them
Okay.
and give yes. And next time they will give questions for opposite opponent opponent their peers and analyze and mark themselves. I will how can I say? I will control them.
So you're implementing here a testing system, right? Just in order to identify their lacking points first, then to teach that lacking points, to present the information, and then see the results, whether it works or not, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Very nice. So thank you very much. So any other participants maybe want to share what they usually have in their grammar classroom?
May
Do
I
your
speak?
students really enjoy that? Yes, for sure.
So initially, at the beginning of the lesson, I'll try to explain new theme in the students' own native language and to give some examples in the real future, in the real life, and we play some games in our native language. And then, after 5 or 10 minutes, I try to explain in English grammar, and I compare these grammars between Uzbek and English languages, and then they have imagination about the English grammar. And then I'll explain the rules and when we can use this grammar, or we can when we cannot use in English sentences. And then I distribute some handouts, and we complete some kind of tasks according to the new theme. And in the next lesson, I try to contribute them some kind of tests, and it is very useful for my students.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I really liked your response just because having that comparison with their L1, with their native language, gives us a lot because they are learning, I mean, students are learning the language based on the language learning input that they already have for their native language, right? That is very great way to help them to compare the lacking points to pluses and minuses to similar parts and different parts of two grammar constructions in their own native language and in their targeted language as well. Okay, thank you very much. Well, and I could see someone was raising the hand. If I'm not mistaken, that was Varna. No?
It's me.
Yes. Okay.
I wanted to share one of my activity which my students really liked. It can be
Okay, good.
useful for all of teachers. So it's if we have any rules for, let's say, article, definite article, or let's say passive voice, I usually give my students table to write, and I just write the rules on different small cards and put them in the different parts of the room, and divide my students into groups and say one a person will be let's say writer, and one should go and learn by heart the rule and comes and retells the rule. By this way, who finishes the rule and table will be the winner. But the main purpose is they have to revise or learn the rules by themselves, by just physically moving, and also um, with a high speed. So it will be a bit fun and joyful.
Yes, of course. So, and we can say that the activation of your students during the lesson make them more engaged. They can remember more still while they are writing. But one more thing, I would like to say that such kind of games like resembling running dictations might be useful and engaging not only for younger learner students, but with adults proved. So we have been experiencing such games, and we can say that it was very, very effective during the lessons. Okay, and teaching grammar in this very way, engaging way, is very, very important, so that your students don't lose any motivation. They might still be more stimulated and more engaged to learn the grammar, to speak properly, to improve their accuracy throughout their language proficiency, and of course throughout their whole language acquirement. Okay, so I think if you have got some questions, you are free to ask. If no, we can finalize our presentation. Maybe some questions? Anybody?
No.
No, I think it was too much clear.
Maybe you have some
Okay.
suggestions, dear participants.
So, Dilrabo, will you speak?
No, I am just asking if the participants have some suggestions about this very webinar. Maybe they just wanted to share their opinion.
May I continue?
Okay, for sure. Welcome.
Well, from the way shown, and it's proved that it will be more engaged if we let the pupils to participate much more than teacher.
You mean during the lesson?
Yes, during the lesson.
Yes, you're right. Thank you for your idea. Okay. Any more?
Hi, everybody. I have just a suggestion.
Mhm.
Maybe just a comment. So, which is the first time that I'm taking part in this webinar that is organized by our local teachers, and I see that it is great because just currently during 2 weeks we're participating in webinar which is organized by American Embassy, and I guess you also know American Fellows. And what I would like comment on presentations. So they're very colorful. They're really ready-made materials that can be used. And even I'm thinking about my university students. And thank you, Nilufar, for this um, online that is really very useful. So having that 20 years of my experience, it was the first time that I was just thinking about that grammar. And you know that according to preset program, that grammar that we teach in universities, it is communicative grammar, grammar in context. So we're aware of these approaches that were presented today. But really, and I would like to comment on this thing that to make it more interactive. But I guess presenters were so unique today, so great. Thank you so much. What can be the most interactive is the chat. So the chat today was not as interactive as it can be, and maybe in this case, one of the moderator would just manage the chat, and all the questions in it would be answered. So it was great. Thank you, ladies, so much.
Thank you for your comment. We will take into consideration everything in our next webinars. I think that's it. Now we can just finish our webinar. Thank you for your attention and active participation. Hope today's webinar was very useful, and we really want to see how we really hope that you will use them in order to make your lessons creative and interesting, fruitful. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone.